This is a vote in the House of Representatives. We've got live pictures of the division taking place on that motion moved by the Prime Minister to mark October 7. My colleague Trudy McIntosh is here. And Trudy, this is a day when you would hope the Parliament would be united in commemorating and showing support to Australia's Jewish community and to Israel after that atrocity of October 7. But this is a divided Parliament.
Yeah, that picture says everything about where this Parliament is at, Kieran, on this issue. The Coalition deciding that it could not support the Albanese government's motion here to mark October 7, that also made reference to the deaths we've seen in Gaza, also the concern about escalation. I'll run you through. You can see, we obviously know Labor's supporting this, the Coalition opposing. Fascinating to see what the crossbench is doing. I'm told by a producer sitting in the chamber that no Greens are in there at the moment, so that essentially means they would be abstaining on this motion entirely. As for the Teal MPs, the vast bulk of them, I'm told, are sitting in the chamber. I'll run you through the names. It includes Zoe Daniel, Monique Ryan, Kate Chaney, Kylie Tink, Zali Steggall, also Di Lee, the member for Fowler, sitting alongside the government as well. We're waiting to see where Allegra Spender sits, the member for Warringah. We're just having a look at these pictures. She's sitting alongside her crossbench colleague. She did give an impassioned plea, though, in the minutes before we started to see this voting take place. She was concerned about the politicisation, says she would have supported two separate motions if that had been the path the Prime Minister went down. Opposition Leader Peter Dutton making it clear he could not get behind the wording that the Prime Minister has put in place here. And this is where we are right now, Kieran, seeing this moment of stark partisanship at a time when the nation probably would expect our politicians to be able to find a way through the middle here and reach an agreement on what is an incredible atrocity just over a year ago. The
opposition leader made reference to Section K. This was in the motion that was moved by the Prime Minister. And just to reiterate what this said, Section K of this motion said, it affirms this support for a two-state solution, a Palestinian state alongside Israel, so that Israelis and Palestinians can live securely.
The matter was resolved in the affirmative. And I give the call to the Leader of the House.
As expected,
Thanks, Speaker.
The government won that with their numbers and with the crossbench, but this is a divided Parliament, as we said, on an issue where there really should be unity among the major parties. And Trudy, just to reiterate what that motion, the section was, that the motion affirms the Parliament's support for a two-state solution, a Palestinian state alongside Israel, so that Israelis and Palestinians can live securely within internationally recognised borders as the only option to ensure a just and enduring peace. That was the element that Peter Dutton took exception with, and also the reference to ending the violence in Gaza and Lebanon and so on. They wanted a more targeted message focusing on October 7 and its impact on Israel and the Jewish people. That's not what happened.
It wasn't what happened. The Prime Minister, I think, front-run some of that. He knew this was coming from Opposition Leader Peter Dutton today. In his speech first, the Prime Minister went out of his way to point out that his view is in line with that of US President Joe Biden, in line with that of what we see of our other comparable allies, including New Zealand and Canada, that Australia has consistently laid out that view since October 7, that yes, it condemns, of course, what happened on October 7, but the government feels it also needs to speak about the path forward, and that escalation is going to make things worse for everyone, for all sides. That's where the Prime Minister's come to on this debate. Peter Dutton believes, though, today was not the day to make that point, that instead it should have been left until potentially tomorrow for a separate motion. That's where this has landed. I did want to show you, just before that vote, we saw the words of Allegra Spender, the independent MP from that crucial seat in Sydney's eastern suburbs. This is her view on what should have happened. She would have been happy to support a coalition motion if it had been split in half. Ultimately, though, we saw her sitting with her Teal colleagues voting with the government.
I wish that we as a parliament could come together and lead unitedly. I would have supported this motion had it been separated into two motions, one on October 7, one recognising the pain that the last year had brought. even on separate days, we could have found a way through this, and I am once again disappointed by this House and the politicisation of this issue, because the country is looking for us to come together. The country is hurting. There are people who have lost friends and families across our communities. They are hurting, and we are not helping these people. I support, on the record, because I know this is politicised, I do support Israel's right to defend itself, its right to respond, respond right now. I do not support a one-sided imposed ceasefire on Israel. I'm entirely clear of this. But of course, like so many other people, I pray for peace. Because the only way we will get that, I believe, ultimately, is if we have two states living next to each other. This is a peace that I pray for, and I wish to God that this parliament could actually make a contribution towards it.
So ultimately, Labor gets its motion up through the House today, but the significant takeaway will be that a break in bipartisanship between the two major parties. And just to reiterate, the Greens didn't vote either way, deciding instead to abstain on this issue. It's
quite a momentous day in that sense, Trudy, because this is a conflict that's defined so much of what we've spoken about the last 12 months. It's continuing to have reverberations in that region, obviously being felt by large sections here. I can't remember a conflict where there's been so much of our own Australian community invested in what's happening there with relatives, friends and so on, as we're seeing in the events of the last few days. But I do see this as a significant day when the Parliament can't bring a bipartisan motion to mark our support for Israel, for the people that were attacked on that day, and commemorate their loss.
And you wonder, Kieran, how much in the brutal politics that we're in at the moment, the election timing plays into this, that it's in both major political leaders' interests not to reach an agreement. Anthony Albanese didn't want to be seen to be bending backwards just to support something that Mr Dutton had put forward. But in the reverse, Mr Dutton doesn't want to give Anthony Albanese a political win. It works for him to say that this is the Prime Minister speaking out of both sides of his mouth. So this is for both sides essentially playing to their own domestic bases. And in the end, we see this scenario where our Parliament is not able to come together and speak as one to condemn an atrocious terror attack.
Trudy McIntosh, thank you on that breaking news.